I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of my apartment. The glittering skyline of Chicago stretched out beneath me like a promise I had carved with my own two hands. The glass was cool against my fingertips, the city humming with life far below. My reflection stared back, sleek black silk blouse, hair perfectly pinned, lipstick still fresh from my last meeting. No one looking at me would guess how many nights I cried myself to sleep to get here. My phone buzzed on the marble counter behind me, a low vibration that echoed in the otherwise quiet room. I almost didn't check it, but habit won. It was a voicemail. From my brother. I hadn't heard his voice in years, and the sound of it made my stomach tighten. He spoke softly, hesitantly. Not the mocking tone I remembered. "Jess, we need to talk. Dad's not doing well. Mom said, just call me back." My thumb hovered over the screen, heart beating faster than I wanted to admit. I could almost feel that night again. The sharp crack of pain across my face, my mother's laugh, my brother's smirk. My pulse quickened, the memory uninvited but crystal clear. I set the phone down carefully, as though it might explode. After everything I'd built, after everything I'd survived, they wanted me back. The city glittered outside, but I suddenly felt the darkness creeping in from the past, whispering, "What are you going to do, Jessica?" I was 19 the night everything changed. It had started like every other fight. My father yelling about grades, about money, about me not respecting his house. I stood in the narrow kitchen, my hands balled into fists at my sides, my throat burning from holding back tears. "You think you're better than us?" he roared, his face red, breath hot with fear. "Walking around here like you're some big shot because you got into a state college?" "I'm just trying to live my life," I shouted back, my voice cracking. Then it happened. His fist connected with my cheek so fast I didn't even see it coming. The world tilted, my ears rang, and I stumbled backward, grabbing the counter for balance. My skin burned where he hit me. And then, laughter. My mother's laugh, sharp and cruel, cut through the ringing in my ears. My brother snorted like it was some kind of joke. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The humiliation was worse than the pain. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. I turned, ran upstairs, and slammed my bedroom door shut. My cheek throbbed, my chest heaved. My whole body shook, from rage, from heartbreak, from the sudden realization that I was completely alone in that house. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and made 3 calls. The first to my best friend, Allison, who didn't ask questions, just said, "Come. I'll pick you up in 10. The second to my manager at the diner where I worked weekends, begging for extra shifts. She said yes. The third to my grandmother's old landlord, asking if the tiny one-bedroom apartment she once rented was still available. By some miracle, it was run-down and cheap, but mine if I wanted it. I stuffed my backpack with whatever clothes I could grab, took the small silver locket my grandmother had given me before she passed, for when you need strength, Jess, and walked out the door without looking back. The night air was cold, the stars blurred with tears, but something in me had shifted. That was the night I decided I was done being their punching bag. That was the night I ended everything. The first few weeks were the hardest. Allison's couch became my bed, and her tiny apartment smelled faintly of vanilla candles and ramen noodles. I worked double shifts at the diner, my feet aching, my hands smelling like coffee no matter how many times I washed them. At night, when Allison was asleep, I'd sit cross-legged on the living room floor with my laptop, filling out scholarship applications, Googling how to start over with nothing. The apartment I'd found was barely more than a shoebox, peeling wallpaper, a single window, creaky floors, but the day I signed the lease, I felt like I'd just bought a castle. I slept on an air mattress and ate microwaved noodles for months, but every night I locked that flimsy door, I felt safe. I was exhausted all the time, but I refused to quit school. I switched to night classes, studied during breaks, and worked every hour my boss would give me. There were nights I cried quietly in the bathroom, staring at my reflection, dark circles under my eyes, hair a mess, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Then came the turning point. One late night, a customer at the diner overheard me explaining an economics assignment to a coworker. After his meal, he left his card with a note. You have a sharp mind. Call me if you ever want an internship. His name was Daniel Pierce, owner of a small but growing consulting firm downtown. I almost didn't call him, afraid it was a joke, but something about the way he'd looked me straight in the eye that night told me he was serious. Daniel became my first real mentor. He didn't pity me, he respected me. He taught me how to speak with confidence, how to read a room, how to negotiate my worth. I started as an unpaid intern, running errands and organizing files, but I absorbed everything, staying late, asking questions, watching how deals were made. When a junior analyst quit unexpectedly, Daniel gave me a shot at the role. I worked harder than I ever had, late nights, endless coffee, chipped nail polish, spreadsheets blurring until I saw numbers in my dreams. Slowly, the wins came. My first client presentation, my first bonus, the first time I paid my rent without worrying about overdraft fees. And I kept it all secret. On social media, I posted nothing but generic quotes and blurry coffee shots. My family didn't need to know where I lived or how well I was doing. I wanted my success to grow quietly, like a storm gathering strength. By 25, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I'd been promoted twice, saved enough to buy a sleek apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows, and built a network of people who believed in me. But no matter how far I climbed, I never forgot that night. The sting on my cheek, my mother's laugh, my brother's smirk. It was the fuel that kept me going. 3 days after my brother's voicemail, I agreed to meet them. I didn't invite them to a coffee shop or some neutral place. No, if we were going to do this, I wanted them to see everything. So I told them to come to my apartment. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and I watched their faces as they stepped out into the private top-floor lobby. Their eyes darted around, marble floors, modern art on the walls, the faint scent of expensive candles in the air. When they reached my door, I was already waiting. I wore a tailored white suit, my hair sleek, my makeup perfect. No bruises, no tears, just the version of me they never imagined I could become. Jessica, my mom said softly, almost like a question. I stepped aside and let them in. Their eyes roamed over the apartment, the glass windows overlooking the skyline, the shelves lined with books and awards, the warm golden light pooling on the hardwood floors. This is yours? My brother asked, disbelief dripping from his voice. Yes. I closed the door quietly behind them, the click of the lock sounding final. For a long moment, no one spoke. I let the silence stretch, let them take in every detail. I wanted them to feel it, the success, the independence, the fact that I didn't need them anymore. Finally, I broke the silence. I heard your message, I said, my voice calm but edged with steel. You said Dad isn't doing well. I'm sorry to hear that. But you should know, the night he hit me and you laughed, that was the night I decided I was done being your daughter, your sister, your punching bag. My mom flinched. My brother looked at the floor. You think I forgot? I continued, stepping closer. Every shift I worked, every scholarship I applied for, every late night I stayed up building this life, I did it with that night replaying in my head. It was the fire that kept me going. My dad, frail now, sat down on the edge of my sofa. Jess, I was angry. I was stupid. He swallowed hard. I regret it every day. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes I never expected, shame. Real shame. I walked to my desk, picked up a framed photo, me, standing with Daniel and my team, holding the award we'd won for landing our biggest client. I own 10% of Pierce Consulting now, I said, setting the photo back down. I lead negotiations with Fortune 500 companies. And everything you see here, I gestured around the apartment. I paid for it myself, without a single dime from you. Their silence was almost satisfying. You came here thinking you'd find the same girl you broke that night, I said softly. But she's gone. You killed her. I gestured to myself, to the apartment, to the entire life I'd built. This is who I became instead. No one dared to speak. The weight of my words settled into the room like heavy fog. And for the first time in years, I felt completely, entirely in control. I let them sit in silence for a while longer, letting the weight of everything I'd said sink in. Then I spoke again, not out of anger but out of something deeper. A quiet authority that even surprised me. "I'm not here to punish you," I said, my voice steady. "But if you want to be a part of my life now, there are conditions." My brother looked up, frowning. "Conditions?" "Yes." I crossed the room and sat on the edge of the armchair opposite them, my posture deliberate, not defensive, but commanding. "First," I said, looking at my father, "you will never raise your hand to anyone in this family again. Not Mom. Not me. Not anyone. You want to be in my life? You start by being accountable for what you did that night. You say it out loud. Not to me. To yourself." He swallowed hard and nodded. "I was wrong, Jess. I'm sorry. It wasn't much, but it was something." Second, I turned to my mom. "You laughed that night. Do you know what that did to me? You made me believe my pain was a joke." Her lip trembled. I thought if I laughed, it would make it smaller, less serious. But I see now what I did. "I'm sorry, Jessica." I nodded once. "You want a relationship with me? Then you learn to stand up to Dad. You learn to protect yourself. If I see you slip back into the same patterns, I will walk away again, and this time for good." She wiped her eyes quickly, nodding. "And you?" I turned to my brother, who looked uncomfortable. "You don't get to smirk from the sidelines anymore. You either grow up and become a man who defends his sister, or you stay out of my life entirely." He looked down, his voice low. "I was a kid. I didn't know how to act. But you're right. I should have stopped him. I won't let it happen again." I leaned back slightly, feeling the power shift settle fully in my favor. "These are my terms," I said. "Respect me. Respect each other. Get therapy if you need to. I'm not saying we'll be perfect overnight, but I am saying this is the last chance you'll ever get. If I let you back in, it's on my rules." They nodded, all three of them, quiet and solemn. For the first time, I saw not just guilt, but possibility. A chance for something new. "Good," I said softly, standing. "Then maybe we can start again. But it's going to be on my timeline, not yours." When they left, the apartment was quiet again. I walked to the window, my bare feet cool against the polished floor, and let the city lights wash over me. The skyline was the same as it had been earlier that evening, bright, sharp, alive. But something in me had shifted. I went to my dresser and picked up the small silver locket my grandmother had given me. I opened it, staring at the tiny picture of her smiling face. "You'd be proud of me, Grandma," I whispered. That night so many years ago, I had clutched this same locket in my fist, feeling the metal dig into my palm as I made those 3 calls. Back then, it felt like the end of my world. Tonight, standing in my apartment with the city humming below, it felt like the beginning of something entirely new. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down on the sofa, letting my shoulders finally relax. I thought about Dad, frail, regretful. Mom, for once, without a cutting remark. My brother, quiet and serious instead of smirking. Maybe they would change. Maybe they wouldn't. But either way, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't that scared, broken 19-year-old anymore. I wasn't waiting for them to save me. I had saved myself. I traced the locket with my thumb, smiled faintly, and whispered the words that had carried me through every long night, every setback, every moment I wanted to give up. That night, you broke me. Tonight, I showed you I was unbreakable.